History isn't just written by emperors, war heroes, or billionaires, it's also shaped by the least expected people. A janitor, a teenager, a school teacher, or even a mistake can tip the scales of time and send the world in a completely different direction. These aren't just feel-good stories. They're proof that history doesn't care about your title. It cares about action. So let's dive into 15 times the most unlikely people stepped up, stood their ground, or simply made a decision that changed the course of history forever. And trust us, some of these might surprise you. Number 15. Rosa Parks. After a long day at work, what will you do? Grab a snack? Scroll through your phone? Complain about your boss? Rosa Parks sat down on a bus, and in doing so, stood up to an entire system of oppression. It was December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama. Segregation was law, and buses had a clear racial hierarchy. But when the driver ordered Parks to move so a white passenger could sit, she stayed put. Not because she was physically tired, she later said she wasn't, but because she was tired of giving in. Her arrest kicked off the Montgomery bus boycott, a 381-day rebellion that left the transit system bleeding money and pushed the civil rights movement into high gear. A quiet woman refusing to move shook the foundations of segregation. History loves its big speeches and grand battles, but sometimes it only takes one woman, a city bus, and a stubborn refusal to budge to change the world. So, never give up. Number 14. Tiananmen Tank Man. A lone man, dressed in simple clothes, standing in front of a column of tanks. No weapons, no armor, just defiance. The image, captured on June 6, 1989, remains one of the most powerful symbols of resistance in modern history. The Chinese government had just unleashed a brutal crackdown on student protesters in Tiananmen Square, leaving hundreds, possibly thousands, dead. The streets were tense, the military in control, but then came him. He didn't shout, he didn't fight, he just refused to move. When the tanks tried to swerve, he stepped back into their path. For a moment, the unstoppable war machine was, in fact, stopped by a single person. To this day, no one knows his name. Was he arrested? Executed? Well, no one can say. But his image remains, an unshakable reminder that courage doesn't need a name or a title. This story proves that if you are right, then no one can stop you. Just be sure not to stand in front of a tank. Number 13. Mohamed Bouazizi. Mohamed Bouazizi wasn't a politician. He wasn't a revolutionary. He was just a street vendor trying to make a living. Selling fruit in the Tunisian town of Sidi Bouzid, he faced daily harassment from local officials who demanded bribes and confiscated his cart. On December 17, 2010, one final humiliation pushed him over the edge. After being slapped by an officer and having his goods seized, Bouazizi doused himself in gasoline and set himself on fire. His desperate act of protest ignited something far bigger, a revolution. Within weeks, protests erupted across Tunisia. Within a month, the country's longtime dictator, Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, fled the country. And that was just the beginning. The fire Bouazizi sparked spread across the Middle East, fueling what became known as the Arab Spring. He never saw the uprisings that reshaped the region, but his name became synonymous with the power of ordinary people pushing back against oppression, proving that even the smallest voice can trigger big quakes. Number 12. Todd Beamer and the passengers of Flight 93. Now this one is pretty spectacular. On the morning of September 11, 2001, 4 planes were hijacked by terrorists. 3 reached their targets. The 4th, United Airlines Flight 93, did not. That wasn't an accident. That was a fight. Among the passengers was Todd Beamer, an account manager who, like the others, realized their plane had been taken over. When they learned of the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, they knew their flight was headed for another devastating target. most likely the U.S. Capitol or the White House. But they didn't sit and wait for fate to play out. Beamer and several other passengers organized a plan, storming the cockpit in a desperate attempt to regain control. The plane crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing everyone on board, but sparing countless lives on the ground. Beamer's last known words, "Let's roll," became a rallying cry. That day, ordinary passengers became heroes, proving that even in the face of terror, resistance is possible. Number 11. Frank Wills. Frank Wills was just doing his job. A night shift security guard at the Watergate office complex, he had no idea that a small piece of tape would unravel the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. It was June 17, 1972. While making his rounds, Wills noticed someone had taped over the lock of a basement door. Thinking it was just a mistake, he removed it. But when he came back later and saw the tape again, he called the police. That single phone call led to the arrest of 5 burglars attempting to wiretap the Democratic National Committee's headquarters. Burglars with direct ties to President Richard Nixon's re-election campaign. 2 years later, Nixon resigned in disgrace. All because one security guard refused to overlook a suspicious detail. Wills didn't set out to change history. He just paid attention. Now, the actual question is, how much do we pay attention? Do we actually see what's happening around us? Well, if we put our smartphones away for a minute, we might just see something that could change the world. Number 10. Candy Lightner. Most people, when faced with tragedy, grieve. Candy Lightner got angry, and then she got to work. In 1980, her 13-year-old daughter, Carrie, was killed by a repeat drunk driver. The driver, who had multiple DUI offenses, faced almost no consequences. That was the reality at the time. Drunk driving was treated as an unfortunate accident, not a crime. Lightner decided that had to change. From her living room, she founded Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, an organization that took on lawmakers, courts, and the alcohol industry. Her movement didn't just raise awareness, it forced action. Thanks to her relentless campaigning, drunk driving laws became stricter. Legal blood alcohol limits were lowered, and the drinking age in the U.S. was raised to 21. Today, MAD has helped save thousands of lives. Lightner turned her pain into a movement, proving that when the system fails, one person's fury can be enough to rewrite the rules. Number 9. J.K. Rowling. In the early 1990s, Joanne Rowling was broke, newly divorced, and raising her daughter alone. With nothing but an idea scribbled on napkins, she started writing Harry Potter, a story about a boy wizard destined for greatness. She wasn't aiming to change the world. She just needed to survive. After facing multiple rejections, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was finally published in 1997. But even then, her publisher insisted she use the initials J.K. because they thought boys wouldn't read a book written by a woman. Joke's on them, because what followed was nothing short of literary history. 7 books, 8 movies, a billion-dollar franchise, and a generation of kids who grew up believing in magic. Rowling didn't just create a best-selling series, she made reading cool again. From a struggling single mom to one of the most successful authors ever, her story proves that sometimes the greatest magic isn't in wands or spells, it's in perseverance. So never ever compare a bearded man with a beautiful lady. Number 8. Lily Ledbetter. For nearly 20 years, Lily Ledbetter worked at Goodyear, believing she was being paid the same as her male co-workers. She was wrong. When she finally discovered the massive pay gap, she sued. Her case made it to the Supreme Court, but in 2007, they ruled against her, saying she had waited too long to file the lawsuit. Instead of backing down, Ledbetter took her fight to Congress. 2 years later, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act was signed into law, making it easier for employees to challenge wage discrimination. Ledbetter didn't get the back pay she deserved. but she ensured that future generations of women wouldn't face the same injustice. Her story proves that even when the system tries to shut you down, persistence can rewrite the rules. Number 7. Lois Gibbs. Lois Gibbs was just a mother trying to protect her kids. What she uncovered changed environmental laws forever. In the late 1970s, Gibbs was raising her family in Love Canal, New York, a seemingly quiet neighborhood. But there was a problem. People were getting sick. Her own children suffered from rare illnesses, and as she dug deeper, she learned that her community sat on top of 20,000 tons of toxic chemical waste. Worse, no one was doing anything about it. She didn't have a science degree. She wasn't a politician, but she had determination. She organized protests, fought the government, and refused to back down. Her activism led to the evacuation of over 800 families and the creation of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Superfund program, which still cleans up toxic sites today. Gibbs proved that you don't need the power to make a difference. You just need the guts to demand change. Number 6. Sir Tim Berners-Lee. If this guy didn't exist, you wouldn't be scrolling, clicking, or wasting hours online. No social media, no viral memes, no endless rabbit holes of useless trivia. Nothing. Sir Tim Berners-Lee didn't just tinker with tech. He straight up built the modern digital world. Back in the late 80s, while working at CERN, he had one simple but game-changing thought. What if information could be connected and shared instantly? So he created the World Wide Web, a system where anyone, anywhere, could access anything at any time. By 1991, the first website was live. By 1994, the internet was unstoppable. And here's the shocker. He didn't cash in. He made it free, open to everyone. The man could have been filthy rich, but instead he gave the world its most powerful tool. Every click, post, and search, you owe it to this one guy's vision. Number 5. Ryan White. In the 1980s, AIDS was misunderstood, feared, and heavily stigmatized. Then came Ryan, a 13-year-old boy from Indiana who showed the world that the disease wasn't just something that affected drug users or the LGBTQ+ community. White was a hemophiliac who contracted HIV from a contaminated blood transfusion. When his school found out, they banned him from attending. That decision sparked a legal battle, forcing America to confront its ignorance and fear of the disease. With media attention mounting, White became an outspoken advocate for AIDS awareness, breaking stereotypes and fighting for the dignity of those infected. By the time he passed away at just 18, he had transformed the conversation around HIV/AIDS, influencing policy changes and inspiring the Ryan White Care Act, which still provides medical support to patients today. His legacy? Proof that even a teenager can challenge a nation's fear and win. Number 4. Malala Yousafzai. Most teenagers worry about homework. Malala Yousafzai worried about surviving just to attend school. Born in Pakistan's Swat Valley, Malala grew up in a world where the Taliban dictated every aspect of life, including the belief that girls didn't deserve an education. She refused to accept that. At just 11, she started speaking out, writing anonymous blog posts, and giving interviews about the right for girls to learn. Her voice grew louder. The Taliban took notice. In 2012, a masked gunman boarded her school bus and shot her in the head. She survived. And instead of silencing her, they amplified her message. After months of recovery, she moved to the UK, where she co-founded the Malala Fund, a charity fighting for global education. At 17, she became the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner in history. Malala didn't just fight for education, she proved that knowledge is more powerful than fear. But now knows one who where she is. Number 3. Irina Sendler. When the Nazis occupied Warsaw in 1939, they turned the Jewish ghetto into a death trap. Irina Sendler, a Polish social worker, refused to stand by and watch. Disguised as a nurse, she smuggled food, medicine, and supplies into the ghetto. But she didn't stop there. Working with the underground organization Zygota, she began secretly transporting Jewish children out, hiding them in coffins, toolboxes, and even under stretchers. One by one, she saved an estimated 3,000 children, giving them new identities and placing them with Christian families. In 1943, the Gestapo arrested her. She was tortured, her legs and feet broken, but she never revealed a single name. She escaped, continued her resistance work, and lived to see the war end. Many call her the female Schindler, but she doesn't see herself as a hero, just someone who couldn't turn away. So guys, instead of waiting for the GTA 6, help others. It's a good deed. Number 2. Agnes Baden-Powell. In 1910, girls weren't supposed to climb mountains, build fires, or learn survival skills. Agnes Baden-Powell thought that was ridiculous. Her brother Robert Baden-Powell had founded the Boy Scouts, and at one of their first rallies, a group of determined girls showed up, calling themselves the Girl Scouts. Inspired, Agnes took action. She co-founded the Girl Guides, creating an organization dedicated to empowering young women in ways society never had. She didn't just copy the Boy Scouts, she tailored the program to develop independence, confidence, and leadership in girls. Soon, the movement spread worldwide, leading to the birth of Girl Scouts USA. Today, millions of young women have benefited from the program she started. Agnes didn't ask for permission to change the rules. She just rewrote them. And in doing so, she helped shape generations of strong, capable women. Well, just love her. Do you? Number 1. Misty Copeland. Ballet has long been a world of rigid traditions, strict body standards, and overwhelming whiteness. Misty Copeland changed that. She didn't start training until age 13, an impossibly late age for ballet. She didn't come from wealth or privilege, and she didn't have the stereotypical ballerina body. But she had raw talent, determination, and a refusal to accept no as an answer. Despite years of being told she didn't belong, Copeland shattered barriers in 2015 when she became the first African-American principal dancer at the American Ballet Theater. In doing so, she didn't just claim a title, she redefined what a ballerina could look like. Copeland's journey proves that talent isn't limited by background, race, or body type. All it takes is one person to break the mold and pave the way for others. And that, my friends, is how progress is made. We really hope this video has given you a good lesson. And as we always say, if it did, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.